Welcome to the People's Guild. If you are invested in Splinterlands or if you are just curious about Splinterlands, then this podcast is for you.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, a second episode coming to you this week. We've got a special guest. He is all over the Splinterlands universe. You've seen him eloquently speaking at Digicon. You've seen him on various content creators just this week, featured on Aftersound and Tales from the Cryptmancer. Coming live to you guys with us today is the one and only Maxpower from Archmage. Welcome back, Max.
What's up, guys? Happy to be back at everybody's favorite Splinterlands podcast, the People's Guild.
Thank you very much. After that introduction, I was just ready with a big applause after all that. That was perfect introduction. So, yeah, just to kick us off, can you just talk us through the recent changes to Archmage and possibly talk to us about the response as a result of it?
Yeah. So I'll give you guys a quick backstory for anybody who may not be, familiar with kind of where we were, how we got here. So the short of the history of kind of where billing came into play with Archmage. We first launched with alpha and beta tokens. Those cost $10 when we launched with them. We sold out of the beta super aggressively at the end, right? We had literally a month or two where they weren't selling only like a handful a week. And then in like the last week that we had betas before they sold out, it was like 30% of our inventory sold in that week, right? So it was like months of not selling and then 30% in that week sold. So there was a massive demand at that point. We decided to release our standard token earlier than expected as a result. We had intended to not release our standard token until billing was ready, but we didn't have billing ready. And we had this massive demand, and we wanted to make sure that we could equip people to use the service, even though we weren't set up how we intended. And so we released those standard tokens at what we call a pre-release price at $25. Where a little bit of that was intended to cover the fact that we hadn't released billing yet, right? So we had like built in part of the fees that people would pay is the idea. And we had increased the price up to that 25 because the demand had shown, if we keep it too low, we might have too many people that are in more that bot farm zone that we're not really trying to go toward, right? We're trying to keep working with real players who love Splinterlands and just want to leverage automation and make sure that they could leverage their assets when they're too busy. So anyway, so we roll that out. We have that going great for a while. We're in the midst of working on our billing system, and Splinterlands announces and comes out with their rewards delegation feature. And we were looking at that. We're like, well, here you go. This solves a number of problems for us because we wanted to make sure that we could do things with people in a way that was secure, a way that wasn't going to expose them to risk because like if we did something wrong, right? Like meaning we coded something wrong or whatever, right? We wanted to make sure that as much as possible, we could set people up for success and not put them at risk. And using a Splinterlands integrated feature is a better way to do that. It's a more seamless way to do that, working with the team and the community and what's already been developed, right? So we rolled it out that way. Our intention was always, from the beginning, to have fees be a percentage of what we helped people earn. Ideally, we wanted it to be literally battle for battle, winning by winning. Our percentage would have been only factored based on whatever we helped you do. So if you played something manually, we weren't trying to get rewards on that. We wanted it to be just on what we helped you earn. And so when we first launched, though, because of the way that the rewards delegation is set up, there wasn't a good way for us to really be able to meter it that way, right? It's sort of an on-off thing. I think this is the right way to do it on Splinterland's side. It requires an active key from the players in order to do it. They sign the transaction with an active key. We don't want to hold active keys because if you understand crypto, holding the active keys is basically like us having the keys to everyone's wallets, and that's not a responsibility we want to have. And so anyway, so we needed to set it up in a way that didn't require people to have to update it all the time just to keep the account running, all of that. And so our first rollout we rolled out where we were getting a percentage of ranked battle rewards, and this is only on the staked SPS. So staked SPS for ranked battle rewards, daily focus chest, and season chests. So players kept the entirety of any value from cards that they earned, packs that they earned, and we were never planning on charging for potions or merits, etc. Also, other things that we help players earn but never tried to have any piece of was leaderboard prizes, and I mean, yeah, that's the main one. And then we never took anything from brawls or licenses and pack earnings and that kind of thing. So that's what we initially rolled out with. But unfortunately, that system, that way of rolling out, made it so that our pricing model didn't make sense to a group that we had attracted and really wanted to serve during our initial rollout, which is what I would call the mixed play user, right? So the mixed play user, they're leveraging Archmage not because they're like, tap it out of the game, I don't want to keep playing. No, they're using Archmage because they love the game, they want to play the game, but all of us get busy and people run into times. Yeah, they go on vacation, they want to be able to do something with their weekends. They aren't going to always be able to get their 25 battles in a day, right? That you need to in order to fully maximize your ECR and your rewards. So we had a number of players that during our time where there weren't any fees other than the token cost, that during those time, people had gotten used to being able to use Archmage as sort of an idle, an autopilot that would fill in for them when they couldn't play, even though they still played often, right? So our initial rollout made it that it was really hard for us to be able to fairly divvy up rewards for players like that, right? It was sort of either you're in or you're out in order for it to make sense, in order for the percentages to make sense and all that, and it's what we needed to do to start in order to, figure out where our numbers needed to be. Because that's how we rolled out. That's what we wanted to do in rolling out. We wanted to get real world numbers, not just guess, right? We didn't know how many players would go ahead and continue. We didn't know, we knew that we were going to lose players, like almost definitely, in terms of using the service. Anytime you turn on a fee when there hasn't been a fee, people should expect people are not going to do that, right? Like that's not a thing that everyone will do. We'll have some level of attrition. So we were expecting that, but we didn't know what the numbers would look like. We didn't know what the value of the fees coming in would look like in terms of the overall earnings and all of that. And so we wanted to make our decision for where fees needed to finally rest based on real world numbers. And so we rolled out fees at the upper end of what we thought they might need to be, right? With the expectation from the very beginning that we're going to roll it out up here, knowing that our plan is to bring it down somewhere, right? But being able to say, these are the numbers, this is where we can safely bring it down to, and we know that we can, and yet the project can still be sustainable. And so really a combination of those things. Getting in, we ran for 2 full seasons, and we were about to announce what our plan was, and then Splinterlands announced 45% layoffs, unfortunately, and we were like, whoa, okay. Like we were literally planning the day after to announce a planned rollout of billing updates, the day after they announced that. And so we were like, okay, we probably need to wait and see what's going to happen in the market to make sure that the changes that we're planning to make are still sustainable. And so we did. We gave it, I think it was about a week and a half before we rolled out the announcement and what our plans were. And that's where we are at this point. So we have rolled that out. We have made the announcement, and it helps us to solve a few very specific things. So first off, we knew that the fees were higher than we intended. Players were complaining about fees being too high. We knew that we were going to bring those down. So we solved that. We brought fees down, right? The other thing is that our new structure now makes it a lot more doable, really solving it probably for 95 to 99% of people, to make it very easy to jump in and jump out of Archmage as you want to when you want to play manually, right? So if you need to use it for a weekend, if you need to use it for a season, say you're going on vacation, or you just want to use it for a couple of days during the season, our model now works for players that want to mix their play rate with Archmage a lot more readily. And then the final thing that is, it's not solved perfectly, unfortunately, but this did help a lot. Players have always been concerned about sharing jackpots with Archmage, right? They don't like the idea of, I win a bunch of SPS and I got lucky and now I have to share a big percentage of that with Archmage, right? People don't like that idea. And I at least get the psychology of it. And so the change that we made actually drastically helps with that too. So what we did is, like I said before, we originally had delegation percentages for ranked battle rewards, daily focus chests, and season chests. We got rid of season chests. So now no token has to delegate anything from their season chest. The season chests remain entirely the players, the players' own to enjoy and get the value from. And in terms of real world numbers, that about lowered the fees for all players by about 15% on average. Now it's going to vary depending on the player, but overall that's what we see. So by eliminating those, we just took a 15% cut in what we were making right off the bat. So that fee that's what the overall impact was there. The other thing is that by getting rid of season rewards, we got rid of about 50%, I'd say on average, of the total chest that somebody might pay a jackpot out of. Right. So as you're playing the game, throughout the season, it's going to vary depending on the player. 50% is more of a round number rather than exact. But the idea is that somewhere around 50% of the chests that you would earn through the season are your season chests alone. And that the other percentage of your chests are often your daily chest, right? And the other thing that's cool is not only did we get rid of 50% of the times that you might have to share a jackpot, we got rid of the times that those jackpots stand the highest chance of being worth the most, because your end of season chests are generally your highest level chests that you earn throughout the season. And so we are participating on the lower portion of your chests at some level up to whatever season you get into. So not only did we make sure to get rid of some of the chances of us participating in those jackpot chests, but the ones that we kept were the lower end of what's possible, right? So really the short of it is that it now has allowed us to do a couple of things. We got to those lower fees for folks, so that they're not having to pay as much. We're still at a rate where we feel confident that we could be sustainable, which I think is also I would hope important for the people that are using the service, that they want it to be able to stick around if they're getting value out of it. So we do feel confident that we could continue. And then we've basically made it so that now mixed play use, while it's honestly not a big moneymaker for us by any means, it is a thing that is philosophically important to us, right? We as a project are not out to try and get people to stop playing Splinterlands. We love the game. We play it ourselves, right? Well, a big part of what Archmage is about enabling players who want to play the game, love the game, but don't have the time to fully maximize it in order to still be able to make sure that their assets are getting as much value for them in that scenario as possible, right? Our players tend to still want to play their brawls. They tend to potentially want to participate in tournaments. They often want to do some level of manual play throughout the season, but they want to be able to make sure that in those times where they're human and they don't have the time to be grinding at the game 24/7, that they can still make sure that their assets are working for them. And so that's really who we cater to. And this change made it that we were able to serve, especially to me, an important segment of people that we can help, because I think it matters for the game. It matters for the ecosystem to be able to say, yes, automation has its place, but we want to make sure it's set up that it doesn't essentially incentivize people to not play, right? We want to incentivize people still to be able to have that fun playing the game and being set up in order to enable that. So those are the key updates. I don't think I missed anything, but any questions on what we rolled out billing wise?
There's a lot to unpack there, Max, and thank you for walking through kind of each step of that new rollout. I'm curious, and I'm sure you guys are tracking from a data perspective. It sounds like the mixed play support shift is, in my mind, it's likely to encourage more folks who were strictly using Archmage as automated scholar to embrace the mixed play a little bit more, because now you're not missing out on those days that you do want to hop into ranked and battle through some stuff. So I'll be keen to get some updates from you guys in terms of what does that mixed play look like? Are we seeing more folks kind of embrace that?
Right.
Real quickly though, Max, I'm curious from a technical perspective, since this update has taken place, is there anything as an Archmage user, do I need to go back in and adjust my delegations? Do I need to turn off the token when I want to play ranked play? What is that from a technical perspective and implementing the tool? How do I go about doing that?
Yeah, great question. So all the details of this are covered in the post. So if anybody needs like a written sort of walkthrough and idea of this after the fact, if you look us up on Hive Archmage.app, you can see the post that covers these billing updates. So if you need the reference to that, that's a great place to go, but I will walk through it. So in terms of, do you need to do anything in order to keep the service running? No. If you had set up and you were up and running with Archmage, it will continue to run no matter no matter if you update anything. So just keep that in mind. Now, with that being said, if you want to capitalize on the benefit of not having to delegate your season rewards, you do manually need to go in and remove the season delegation in order for Archmage to stop receiving that. The way that the system works, we cannot do that. Like technically, people often say, "Oh, Archmage is taking these fees," and I get like that's the psychology of the perspective. But in reality, we literally cannot take anything. The way that Splinterlands has the system set up, players are choosing to give the staked SPS, and we receive it. And if players are not giving it, then we turn the service off. But what that means is that it requires an active key signature in order for players to update the setting. We cannot turn it off if we wanted to be clear. So you have to go in and turn off that season delegation in order to get that benefit. We have information on how to do that. It's all easily doable on our config page if you want to remove that season delegation. Now, for the mixed play use, similarly, when you want to play manually and you want to turn Archmage off for a day, and so again, keep in mind, still technically, you should consider your use of Archmage on a day-by-day basis, right? And we're probably not going to police this super heavily. I mean, we'll be monitoring it, I'm sure, and if we see any clear signs of abuse, we will have to deal with that. But the way that you should think about it is, if you use Archmage for a day, those delegations should essentially stay on for the day. If you want to go into manual play, you turn the delegations off for the days that you want to play manually. You turn it back on for the days that you want it to play automated, and that's kind of the loose way to do it.
And Max, let me interject just to clarify on that. Is that looking at UTC? How do we define days?
Yeah. So again, I mean, the reality is we are not likely going to be going in and splitting hairs on the hours. We would be looking more so for. We would be looking for something like somebody goes in, they turn on the service, it runs most of the day, and they turn it off right before the delegation happens, and then they turn it right back on after the rewards have been claimed or something, right? Like that. We would be looking for that kind of behavior in terms of a consistent pattern of trying to subvert the billing system. If you come in and like, it's off for 17 hours and you turn it on for 27 hours and then off again for 10 hours or whatever, we're probably not going to be checking that closely, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong. And if we have more of a direct exact standard for that, we'll make sure to put out an update for how people can make sure of that. But in general, if you are using it in an honest way, you're probably okay. Right? Like if you are turning it off when you don't want to use it, turning it on when you do, and kind of thinking that in general as I'm turning it off for the day or I'm turning it on for the day, that's the way that you want to think about it. So we don't have like a exact UTC time frame or whatnot. It's a user by user sort of thing.
How has the response been? Sorry, yeah, go.
Yeah, there was something else. So in terms of how you would do that, you don't even need to disable the bot itself. You can literally just remove the delegation and it'll stop playing. So that it could be as simple as that. That way, your settings stay the same. all of that, and literally all you have to do is remove the delegation, and it'll shut off. So you could go into archmage.app/config, click the buttons to remove the delegation, whatever you want to play manually, and then when you want to have it be automated again, you click the buttons to turn the delegation back on, and then at least on a day-by-day basis, you should be solid there. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's really, really important for people to know. Thank you. What has the response been from the current users of Archmage, and have you noticed a growth since you released these updates?
Yeah, so overall, what we've been seeing, it's hard to say if we've seen a much for growth since we released the updates in terms of how we look at that and how we could see it. So what I could tell you is that when we launched billing, we saw our users drop in that first couple of weeks by about 30%. So about 70% of our users stuck around right from the beginning. In terms of like how many users actually left, it's probably closer to about 20%, because over that first season, we saw a number of people sort of rolling into the Discord like, hey, my bot's not working. Why is it not working? Right. And we're like, oh, it's because we implemented the delegations. You just got to turn them on. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And they turn them on, and then, they're off to the races. Right. So we saw a number of that happening, where it's just the timing of people rolling back in and getting it set up after we had announced it. Right. And so we saw somewhere around a 20% drop from usage before we had rewards delegation required. Since then, that's basically been on a consistent upward trajectory. So what level of the returning users versus new users that we've acquired in that time, who they were never worried about the rewards delegation, right? Because we saw a number of people who were just happy to continue, happy to move forward. It's hard to say. What I can say is at least in terms of token demand, we as of today, actually earlier today, we just launched more tokens available at a new retail rate of $20 a token that people can get right now, as long as they're still available. And the reason why we released those is because we saw that the market was showing, based on the token price, that there was still more demand for Archmage, right? So the token price, before we announced that the price would be lowering to $20, had recovered above 25. Right. So our old retail rate was 25. So the token price had recovered above 25. That, as a project, is kind of our signal to say, if the secondary market is above the demand of our retail rate, that says that we should mint more tokens, right? That as long as we're able to serve those customers, that it makes sense to mint more tokens. And so that had recovered there. And then even after we announced that the price was going down to $20, it was still above $20 when we launched the tokens today. So it was at like $23 or something like that at that point. But anyway, so I forget what my point was. So anyway, in terms of demand and in terms of like usage and growth, so we've seen people continually come onto the platform, continually adding new users. We see consistent sales and Hive engine of the token. There's still plenty of buy and sell activity happening there. And really at this point, it's hard for us to say if we're seeing drastic growth of new users or not. But we are at least back to and above pre-billing numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you say only 20% of the people, your users left. If you were kind of just listening to what was happening in the system at that time, you think just like it was just everyone was just jumping ship, right?
Chicken Little, man.
It was definitely a vocal minority for sure, in terms of the. I think it's a combination of things. I think some people were skeptical that we were actually going to lower the fees, and fair credit. Like, I would probably be skeptical too. Hopefully at this point people have started to see when we say something, we actually honor like what we're saying and why. We're authentic to what our plans are. We're not trying to pull things over on people. We're fairly clear with what our intentions are and why. So we weren't being dishonest. We wanted to see the real world numbers and then lower. And it, who knows? It may or may not have been the right choice, but we thought people would rather have us take pricing down rather than having to raise it, right? So so that's the route that we went. But yeah, overall, that definitely there is still a segment of people that no matter what, they will not be happy paying a percentage of the rewards in order for the service that we provide. We still think it's fair, but man, everybody's got the right to their own opinion, their own desires, and if it's not a pricing model that makes sense for them, there's plenty of other service providers right now that are trying to offer something in the space. So let the market, and people however have shown that the quality of what we offer, the incentive structure that we offer in terms of how we are directly in the battles with you and incredibly incentivized to help you win as much as possible. And it doesn't make sense for us to rest on our laurels and just take your money. People seem to value that. And that's what we're seeing in the market. People continually are using the service, enjoying the service. And we're really grateful for that, right? We're grateful that other people see the vision and see where we're heading and want to, essentially partner together with us to make sure that this project can exist.
Awesome. So yeah, kudos to the team for honoring your word, and I think the community will respond in kind, and I think you guys are already seeing that with the consistent demand for the token. So interesting that you guys have pulled the token price down in addition to the overall associated fees with the Scholar account. So I'm curious, is that pricing of $20 a piece per token, is that going to continue in Archmage's mind, continue to keep the bot farms, quote unquote, at bay as far as entering with something like Archmage?
Yeah, so the price that we had before, and I didn't explain the math perfectly. When we initially announced that the token price was going to be $25, right, in order to deal with potential bot farms and whatnot, it was an increase from what we had in the white paper of $10, right? So we had doubled the price in order to say, hey, we want to further limit this to try and make sure that it's not a super easy investment to try and get as many accounts as possible, right? So that was it was an increase from 10 to 20 was the intention. The extra $5, making it 25, was to cover that time period where billing wasn't in place. So since we now have billing in place, this is the first time that we have minted tokens since having billing in place, and that's why it was the time to officially bring it down like that. A lot of people had missed that was always the plan, but it was. So it's again, it's another example of us just making sure we were honoring our word, honoring the plan of, we have billing in play, so when we mint more tokens, the intended retail rate is $20. Now, will that stay the case forever? I couldn't say for sure. Right now, it seems to be a price that makes sense. It's moving at a level that like we feel good about. It's not. We don't see a bunch of people snapping up hundreds of them, and we don't see a bunch of people, trying to flip them either, right? It seems to be real users, kind of doing the dance of buying and selling as they need to based on their own needs and all that. So, right now that's the price for the indefinite future, but it is possible it would change. If it would, we would be very vocal about whatever the reasons were for why. But
sure.
But the intention has always been, we're not trying to make our money off of the token. The token is mostly there in order for us to be able to control scalability. So we don't want to, like, overnight have 1,000 new users trying to join the service and essentially crashing our systems for everybody, not being able to run the service, effectively for everyone. So we use the tokens as a way to say, hey, we know we can service this many users, so this is the number of tokens that are in the wild. As we can take on more users, either through scalability on our side from, like, hardware and staffing, or we're seeing enough demand to say, okay, there's enough demand that we should mint more tokens because there's demand that we're not capturing. That's the main reason why we would mint more.
Gotcha. And with regards to minting volume, I'm curious, what's the game plan over the next, I don't know, couple of months? Do you guys have kind of a fixed mint number for the standard tokens to be available on Archmage?
I mean that's a great question. So like the Archmage token, the standard token at least, is not intended to be a scarce token, right? Like, and we've been fairly vocal about this. It's scarce in the sense of we only release as much as we feel we could serve. So if demand outpaces our ability to scale, then buy sell dynamics, supply and demand dynamics would dictate that the price goes up, not from us but from the market, right? But that's just that's a matter of time, if that makes sense. That's until we could meet the scaling needs. Anyway, so as a token, it has a max print rate of 1 million. If we ever got that high, I would be incredibly surprised. We're at I think just over 2,000 total, maybe not even quite 2,000 total right now of standard Archmage tokens minted. So if we got to 1 million, I mean, man, Splinterlands is doing great. But in terms of like the tokenomics of it, the intention isn't that the tokenomic model of the Archmage token should have much bearing for how people make their decision on buying it or not. Now for the alpha and beta tokens, those are the only ones that will ever exist. There's 400 betas, I think, and 200 alphas. Those are scarce, so those do go rise and fall in value depending on people's perception of their value in the market. So did I answer your question? I feel like I got off track there.
Yeah, we're good. I am curious, what is so I know Archmage since the initial pricing model was implemented, you guys did offer the experimental I forget what the precise terminology there is, but you're essentially bringing that standard token up to a closer par with the beta alpha success rate, I guess, for lack of a better way. What is kind of the future for? Are you guys planning to continue to close the gap on that? How are you going to differentiate the value between alpha, beta, and standard? What does that look like for Archmage?
Yeah, good question. So the intention is, so like think about our pricing model, right? We make more the more we help our players make. Right. So we have a direct incentive to help everybody win as much as possible. Right. So that is always the goal. The features that are reserved for alpha and beta are not reserved indefinitely. They are generally us testing at a lower scale features that we are trying to roll out to everybody. And that's essentially what you saw when we rolled out the experimental hand finder to everybody, when we rolled out we called it V2.2 when that was rolled out to everybody. And I feel like there was another feature that we enabled that hadn't been enabled. I think maybe harder opponents might have been enabled for everybody. I don't remember. Maybe that one's still not available for everybody. Anyway, all that is to say, the features that we are testing on the alpha and beta tokens are generally things that we are working to roll out to everybody, and that is the plan in terms of at least kind of like our current offering, right? Like if it's a ranked battle reward optimization, that likely will end up in everybody's hands at some point as quickly as possible, based on how we can develop and make sure that it's scalable, right? So we're in the process right now of developing what we call V3 of our hand finder. We have a handful of our alpha token holders. Not even all of alpha token holders have access to this, but we're testing V3 with a handful of alpha token holders because, again, it needs to be refined for a scalable model that we could roll out to everybody without tanking the servers, if that makes sense. But as soon as we get it there, as soon as we get it optimized to that point, our plan would be that it rolls out not only to beta, but also to the standard token holders as well. The kinds of things that would be reserved or separate for alpha and beta tokens. So there's the difference in the percentage rate, right? So alpha tokens only delegate 15% of the staked SPS. Beta delegate 25% of the staked SPS on, again, the ranked battle and the daily focused rewards. Not all the rewards, just those for the staked SPS. So there's that by itself, just the difference in percentage that stands to stay true. compared to the standard. The other thing that alpha and beta token holders tend to get access to, they still will often be our group that we test new features with. So people who want to get earliest, quickest access to what we're testing, working on, alpha and beta tokens are where we deploy that to test. And then future features that may not be included in the standard token may either be available for free for alpha beta token holders, they may be available at a discounted rate for alpha beta token holders, or something akin to that. Essentially, we seek to reward those early adopter tokens by either giving access or giving early access or giving access entirely or discounted access to features that maybe wouldn't make sense in our current model, like a new feature that we might roll out with, like as a for instance. Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's a couple of things that might potentially roll out. We could potentially talk about some of those ideas, but that would be the idea though, is if it's outside of kind of the scope of what we currently offer, for ranked battle optimization, then that would be something that standard access token holders might not get access to without either an additional token or some different fee system or something.
How has the bot been performing? Like, have you found like it's getting better because it's been out for a good few months now? Like, how is that going?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's a number of things at play currently that make it really hard for us to see how it's doing, because Splinterlands itself keeps changing, right? We had like the leveled cards change come into play, which for many accounts drastically changed at least the earnings that you were able to get off of a deck. Like like I have for instance a like a bronze cap deck that I was playing in gold, and now my rewards are cut in about half there, which by the way I'm completely in favor of. Like, well, personally I'd love to have those rewards again. In terms of like the benefit to the ecosystem, I think that was a solid move on the team's part. I think that drastically incentivizes things in a good direction, away from bot farms and toward real players. So anyway, I'm in favor of it. But like things like that, in terms of what you're earning, has changed. That's one of those metrics that people often look at. And then the other thing is that we have seen that there are not only new services coming up and challenging what we're up to, but even some legacy things that were already in existence, some private bots that I won't name names or say anything, but some things that in much of the Splinterlands ecosystem, people kind of consider a little bit of a thorn in their side in terms of some of this. Anyway, some of the other bots have actually kind of increased what they're doing. Either they updated or whatnot. And so in terms of how Archmage does, as bad bots fall out and decent bots rise up, that means by definition that like the overall win rate, the overall ratings and all of that, it becomes more challenging. And so what we're seeing, I mean, still our users from what we have seen still find that compared to other services, Archmage still helps them to rank higher than anything else that's currently on the market. Okay, so we are seeing that, so it's still helping them rank higher than anywhere else. But what those ratings look like are different than they have been, right? That because of a number of changes, that it's some players are seeing that their stuff stays just as high. Other players are finding that their collection isn't quite up to snuff for the current the current meta, for the current battlefield that's out there. There's more competition challenging them, so it varies a little bit. But overall, compared to the landscape, our users still seem to be finding that we're performing better than alternatives, but we're not necessarily trouncing on everyone like there was for a little bit, right? Because again, as bot farms leave, there's less easy wins for us to score too. So anyway, does that make sense?
Yeah. I think also this competition that's coming, I feel it's good for your business, right?
I think it's good overall. What one of our one of our developers basically says, all things considered, the more that like automation as part of the Splinterlands ecosystem becomes an accepted thing, like that's good for us too, right? Like in terms of having to fight against the emotion of like bot bad, like the more options that come on the scene and the more that people have like options to choose from, even likely I think that's ultimately better for any of us that say, hey, automation doesn't have to be something that's detrimental. It can be a good thing overall, an uplift, rather than a downward thing. And so there's that. But then further, I mean, shoot, like I'm very much like a free market kind of person. I think competition's a great thing. I love that we actually have not only the incentive of trying to maximize how much we're winning for people, but we also have real competition to like benchmark against and to try and see, are we still performing? Are we optimized as good as we can be? And I'm happy to say that so far we seem to be holding up. We seem to be staying ahead, and we still have plenty of things on the horizon to keep improving. But yeah, it's good. It's definitely noticeable, the current landscape compared to even just a few months ago. We're seeing a lot of the low value, low intelligent bot farms leave. So a lot of those easy wins are going away. But the automation that's sticking around are the systems that are a lot better for sure. So the options have been getting better for sure.
I'd love to see the data, Max, on what is kind of the breakdown of success rates by league, whether it's modern, wild. What are the? I think you guys released this data a few months back around which cards were most often played and in which league, right, and what were the win rates, and what are the levels that are need to be maxed to achieve these win rates and that sort of thing. Is there any plan to kind of openly release that data and say, hey, if you're operating with a max gold deck for Chaos Legion and Rift Watchers, and you're in the Wild League striving for Diamond, this is where your sweet spot is. What does the plan look like for Archmage releasing that sort of data?
Yeah, so on our roadmap, and people could see that by going to our archmage.courier Hive account. On the roadmap that we posted there, we talked about after this phase where we get V3 out. So we got V3 and we got some scheduling updates that we want to make available to be able to do a little bit more advanced scheduling for people. After we get those out, the next thing on our plan is data and analytics. And so that article that you're talking about, where we put out the information about the different cards and what cards were getting the most wins, a lot of people don't realize this. That was actually a fairly intensive process to be able to put that data together, right? It wasn't just like we clicked a button, pulled down the spreadsheet, organized it, and posted it. It was literally running the models to see what results came back, and combing through that data and like putting it into a usable form to be able to share with people. And so it was actually kind of an intensive process, and not something that we like, while we could do it again, it's a lot of work to produce that one document. And so what we're planning to roll out is actually dynamic data that is that same kind of data, right? So that within somebody's account, they will actually be able to get direct recommendations to say, hey, based on your account, these are the cards that would get you more wins, and like potentially like a score or an approximation of what level of difference that would make, so that people could make decisions on things like, well, I could spend like what's the current value of a even a 1 BCX kitty at the moment? Where are we sitting on Byzantine kitty these days? Do you guys know?
I can pull it up real quickly.
Let's say approximately
300.
Yeah, let's say 300. Okay, so just for example, right? Like we might say, hey, yeah, sure. If you get the kitty, that's a massive win for you on increasing your win rate. Maybe it increases the win rate the most possible. All right, look, yeah,
you were spot on there. Nice call.
Yeah, yep. Good work. But if you max out these 3 common and rare cards, you still get a good bump in win rate, but it's only going to cost you $50 total. Right. And so we plan to be able to dynamically give people that information and make those decisions for themselves, to be able to say, sure, yeah, if you got all the best cards, you're going to get a lot of win rates. But if you want to be more choosy about where you spend your money, you could still make good decisions on like, this card will help me. And it's cheaper, right? So whether it's buying or whether it's renting, we plan to be able to make those recommendations. So that's going to be dynamic data that we want to roll out to actual users of Archmage. Within that rollout, we're also hopefully going to be able to generate more league-wide information dynamically as well, to say these are the current cards that are winning, these are the optimal cards, the optimal win rates and all that. And my guess is that information may only be accessible to Archmage users to get access to whenever they want, but we will almost definitely release that information occasionally publicly, if that makes sense. Like we'll leverage our dashboards and then put out articles to share with people. But if you kind of want what's the exact current up to the minute data, you probably need to be an Archmage user.
Yeah,
fair enough.
That's great. I can't wait for that. It's going to be it's just all about data, isn't it? Kind of just to get that edge on the other players.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, I sort of hope, I hope that there's an element of this where, by being able to provide that data in the way that we could, we might see that there's some demand for Archmage tokens, even for players that don't want to automate anything, even for players that want to play completely manually. That being able to get that dynamic recommendations on their account, that might be worth a $20 token to have constant access to that data, to be able to make optimal buying and renting decisions. So I see, in terms of like the overall service that we provide, I think expanding into that data and analytics also potentially increases the breadth of who Archmage makes sense for, even if folks don't want to automate. So
yeah. Recently, there's been a bit of a kerfuffle, surprisingly, in Splinterlands about bots arriving in tournaments and brawls.
Right.
What's your stance on that, and how do you see Archmage in the future regarding this?
Yeah, so I think this is it's one of to me it's one of the more interesting discussions to think about and to wrestle with. So first and foremost, it should be noted, Archmage has 0 code written that would allow us to play in tournaments or to play in brawls. So any botting that's going on in tournaments or brawls is not being done by it might be being done by Archmage users, but it's not being done using Archmage services, if that makes sense. So, I can't speak for all the thousands of users and what they're doing. I don't know what all of them are doing, but I can tell you that they're not using Archmage to automate anything in tournaments or brawls. So that should be noted, first and foremost. In terms of where Archmage is positioned there, like philosophically, I completely agree with like the stance of Weirdbeard, that it is ultimately best if we can find a place or a way to keep a place where we know that human on human competition is what's happening, right? And that's what's going on there. I think that is good. I think that's worthwhile. I love the idea of that. Now, when we look at how do we actually implement that, how do we make that happen, we start getting into a zone of having more difficulty. And so what I see right now, and this just so like I'll try and be as clear as possible on what's my personal opinion versus like what's an official stance of Archmage. And so most of this is my personal opinion on this. I personally think that unless Splinterlands as a company is able to reasonably provide assurance to all players that there is not automation happening in tournaments or brawls, then what we're seeing the bad actors who are willing to automate tournaments and brawls be able to sweep them from other players regardless. And it may not be drastically present in brawls right now because there haven't been rewards until recently. If it isn't there now, it's going to be there soon. I can just about guarantee you, because there are rewards. So there's reason to, there's incentive to automate. And so the way that I've been talking about this is if there isn't a solution that we can find that lets us get rid of Ultron, then we might as well have Iron Man, right? That we might as well be able to at least enable the average person to be able to compete against Ultron. And so what I would potentially look at is if Archmage was going to roll out something in the tournament / brawls sort of world, it likely won't ever be a fully automated solution. Because I agree. I think as much as we can, we should try and reserve that for humans. And so if Archmage rolls something out, it's more likely a HUD or recommendations on what to play, right? It's let me give you suggestions, kind of like a Splinter Tools, but powered by Archmage data, right? So you would get recommendations, and then as a player be able to choose what to actually submit, improve those teams, because honestly, data for brawls, for instance, is hard to get enough of to make good decisions. And so most players would actually find some benefit in being able to say, okay, this is a good hand, but I've got this gladiator card that would actually improve it, so let me throw that in instead and improve the hand that Archmage would recommend. That's a potential solution to that, to the reality of there are bots currently in tournaments, and they are winning. They're dominating anything that's actually worth anything in tournaments. And so if those are there, we would at least rather say, like, hey, let's give real people the tools to compete in that scenario, and ultimately be able to hold their own and still have that be a place where they can compete. But again, there's a couple of things to note here. If the Splinterlands team ever officially and specifically asked Archmage and said, hey, we don't want you guys to build something for this, and had some sort of official policy on it or something to that effect, we would probably not build something, is my guess. That's in terms of how we operate, that would likely be the case. Now, I for one thing, I don't potentially see that being likely, just based on how the team stance has been about how to deal with bots and automation. I don't think that's likely. If it did happen, we would very likely operate in good faith with the Splinterlands team there, almost definitely. And then further, everything that I just described, it's literally just ideas and theories. It's not even on our roadmap currently. It's not something we're actively working on. It's not something that we're in the midst of developing. It's more when we look at the current situation, philosophically, it's those are some of the ideas that we see. Now, we have also been active and trying to come up with ideas to say, hey, what could we do to wrap our head around? Is there a way that you could ensure it's human on human competition? Are there ways that you could do this? We've submitted some ideas. Imposter came up with an idea that's imperfect but might help, which basically would say, hey, for tournaments, you could potentially have individual block lists for that tournament. So the person running the tournament could say, this is a group of people that cannot play this tournament because they are known or suspected botters in the field, and we're trying our best to make it for humans only, or whatever, right? So that could be a solution that would at least not make it like a Splinterlands top down. It would be at least individual for tournament by tournament. It's still not perfect, because the reality is this is the bigger reason why Splinterlands seems hesitant to try and do a ton around a top-down approach to automation in tournaments or brawls, because it's really hard to know if you're actually being accurate or if you're just punishing a really good player. Because when it comes down to it, you could KYC and at least ensure that the person behind the account is a real person. But what you can't do is you can't be sure that the person submitting the battles is that person and not some level of software automation helping. And so anyway, that's kind of the overall thinking and ideas there. Does that make sense? Any thoughts or feedback on those ideas?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I'm kind of with you, Max. I would love to see, as long as the Ultron exists, it makes sense to offer the Iron Man. Right. Empower the folks who are trying to fight the good fight with some sort of defense. And I would love to see Archmage kind of develop, a Chrome or Brave plugin that offered some sort of heads up display to, help you find your hand. And that feels like something along with the dynamic data that's offering, these are the best cards in this sort of meta within this league. I could see that as a potentially significant draw for folks who are not looking to automate their account, but just simply, play the best and learn as much as possible with the game. So, the data plus the HUD that's helping you kind of put your hand together and construct versus the rule set, the mana cost, yada, yada. Yeah, fantastic stuff. I would love to see that kind of enter the roadmap in the not too distant future for Archmage.
Right.
I was just going to say, you mentioned about the KYC. Why is there this big push for KYC if, like you say, you just can't tell if it's automated or not?
I honestly, I think the biggest reason why there's a push for it is, if I had to guess, this is just, pure theory speculation. I would say this is an issue that is really that people are really passionate about and really emotional about. And they feel like they feel heavy about it. They feel a lot of things. And so I may not look it, but I'm actually for a summer I was a trained lifeguard. And one of the things that they teach you as a lifeguard is that when somebody is drowning, you essentially lose the ability to think through what you're doing. And somebody drowning can literally pull down the person that's trying to save them in the process of them trying to save them. Right. And that they may not even know what they're doing. And I think there might be a little bit of that emotion at play here where people are like, I don't like bots. I don't like automation. I want to fix this. And I'm really I want anything that might seem like even remotely a solution. I want it to be there. And so I think people haven't necessarily thought through the complete idea of what KYC, how much it would solve or not. I think KYC could solve a lot of the bot farm issue, right? You could at least make it that there aren't thousands of accounts that aren't tied to a real person, but you're not going to get rid of the ability for people to leverage software to enhance and enable them to play the game at a high level. Not without literally putting software on somebody's computer to watch what they're doing, and even that, those people will find a way around. So yeah, ultimately it's not likely to solve this idea that automation is going to be at play in terms of enabling players to play at a high level. Where it could solve something is the scale of the ability to automate could solve that. But yeah, so why people are pushing for it, I think it's mainly not completely thought through and thinking it'll solve things that it might not actually solve. With that being said, it does solve some things. So it depends on what people, what people are looking for. I mean, me personally, I really love the way that the Splinterlands teams talks about this, which is they don't want to try and fix it with Web 2.0 and earlier methods. They want to try and fix it with a crypto ethos of, can we do this truth in code rather than what do we do to enforce this as a company, right? They want to fix incentives rather than having to have an enforcement agency against bots. So I personally love that idea, and if they can do it, that's what I want to see happen. But anyway,
well, to some extent, it feels like the KYC thing is kind of the shiny new drum that everybody's lining up to bang on. Right. But the common thread that I've heard throughout, kind of the KYC conversation history with regards to Splinterlands tournaments, brawls, etc., is that it is the primary hindrance to attracting bigger tournament sponsors. Nobody wants to come in and sponsor a tournament that's featuring Ultron and his gang, right? So maybe that's the the biggest piece that we should be shooting for is enabling KYC to allow for these big tournament sponsors to come in and start offering bigger prize pools. But maybe it's maybe that's a bit of a double-edged sword given all the things that we just talked about, right?
Right. And I mean, honestly, like I legitimately wonder if I don't know. So I actually am fairly involved with like the AI world in what I do business wise at this point, right? Like I leverage a lot of AI writing, and I've been playing with AI art a lot, and all of the stuff that's going on there. And the level of advancements that are happening in AI just in the past 6 months is at such a massive rate that I almost wonder if there's even a possibility at this point that you can actually realistically be able to prevent some level of AI being able to be deployed in these scenarios. With aside from that, I legitimately wonder if Splinterlands in its current form is even an esport a bowl game. Right, like if it's the kind of game that like there is certainly a scenario where it is. I think what happened at Splinterfest, live events, that sort of thing. There's definitely scenarios where like there's good, interesting stuff. It's not that I don't think it's an interesting thing in a way that you could present it that way. I don't know if you could realistically solve the problem even with KYC that the tournament sponsors would be okay with. If that makes sense, that we're moving to a point where Splinterlands is a really automatable game just by nature of the kind of game that it is. Like it might literally need to be that a different game is developed in order for it to make sense to have it be more of an esport, right? We at least, when land comes out sometime, when land comes out, and we have potions and stuff like that and spells coming into play, there's at least one more dynamic that adds to the human component of decision making there. But I think unless we have really that changing, you have to constantly adapt. There's some level of random, there's some level of human that comes into it, and each decision could set you up for success or set you up for failure, and it's not sort of one set of decisions against another set of decisions, which is what we currently have with an auto battler sort of system. I wonder, I don't know, I wonder if we're getting to the point that is too easy for technology to at least be able to participate with, that we can't, we may not be able to get rid of that without a game that's literally just more complicated. That
anyway. Probably explains why they're looking into, or they've created all these other games as well, right? They're kind of looking at other ways to develop games that are unbottable, if that's possible. I don't know. Like you're probably a good person to ask. Like, could there be, or do you think that's what they're trying to do?
I mean, maybe. I think part of it is just the landscape of seeing that there are more styles of games as well that people would enjoy playing. I think there's like a purely the business standpoint, the kind of people who are interested in a tower defense game, for instance, are not always the same people that are interested in a trading card game, right? Or especially an auto battler. And similarly, looking at just the GLX arena, or GLS arena, that appeals to a sports audience, regardless of the style of game that you're playing. Like you're appealing to a different sort of IP interest, right? So I think there's something to be said there of just trying to grow the zone of who the games themselves could appeal to. But there might be some level of trying to get ahead of it and put something out that's more of an esport sort of thing. I guess personally, like I see the argument in terms of like why it would be good and why it would be valuable if we could have it be like an esport. And there's lots of potential there. I'm not personally convinced that it's like the only path for Splinterlands to have success, though, if that makes sense. That there's plenty of evidence that people are willing to spend money even when they are going up against AI, right? Like it's not like that is a thing that definitely makes people not want to play. People do that all the time. It happens all the time in Vegas when people are pulling the slots or playing video poker. They're playing against AI, right? It's and in those cases they're just playing against the house. But the reason why they're doing it is because there's a chance to earn something, right? And they have the fun in the process of trying to win, trying to get the jackpot, right? Obviously Splinterlands is much more. There's much more of an opportunity to beat the house in this scenario, so it's not completely the same thing. But all that is to say, I see that there's like we might be entering a mix where people are just not used to this dynamic of what happens to a game when you introduce an earning mechanic to it, and it may not need to look exactly the same as the games have looked that brought us into the zone of esports and this world, right? Like, we're talking how long has esports even been viable, right? Like it's not like it's been a centuries long thing for humans to be playing video games and having big prize pools in it, right? Like most of us likely grew up at a time where our parents were telling us, you're playing too many video games, you'll never get anywhere in life by playing so many video games. And yet, some of the highest earners in the world these days are kids who played too many video games. But anyway, so all that is to say, who knows what the future holds, right? So I don't necessarily see for sure that the path toward a successful future for Splinterlands has to include esports in order for it to be successful. But it would be great. It'd be great if we could figure it out, and I'd love it if we could. I don't see it as not valuable. I don't know. I don't see it as the only thing. It's like it's the like you said, it's the drum that people want to beat, and maybe it isn't what Splinterlands needs. I don't know.
Yeah, I think also like with you make a good point. Like people are just willing to spend money on this game the way it is, right? So
right,
even for it to continue and its long term, the longevity of the game, maybe there's just I don't know. This is what I'm just thinking. Maybe there's just a good core of people who are just willing to kind of play the game, be here, and just do what they've been doing for the past like 4 years.
Yeah, and I think like honestly, to me, I think one of the biggest hindrances toward for the growth of Splinterlands is that the crypto ecosystem itself is still very much like in its infancy, right? Most people are coming in and out of crypto based on what people are talking about in the market. It's growing continually, right? I think each cycle of like, the boom and bust cycle that we see happening with the bear and bull markets, I think we're seeing more people stick around and participate in the crypto world because they love what's going on here and less just because they see it as an opportunity to make a buck. So I think it's growing, but we're still at the very beginning stages where most of us who are here are early adopters. And it may not be that Splinterlands really can, reach that fever pitch until it's until we see crypto having smoothed out some of the rough edges of making it easy for people to, manage keys, and that like people have that working terminology and they figure out how to do that. It's more of a normal thing. And I think we're still early in that. And so for a while, it might be a small group of people. I still think it can grow. We may not have hit the hockey stick of growth that people want yet. We may still be early in the crypto adoption, and thus some level of the adoption curve for this game even.
I heard you and Aftersound kind of talking about something that really piqued my interest. And the idea is shifting the philosophy of attracting those that come to Splinterlands, to Tower Defense, to
right.
anything on the blockchain, specifically Hive Blockchain for our case here.
Right.
It shifting from play to play and earn.
Right.
And right. I think focusing in on, and it feels like the Splinterlands team, with everything that's Matt and Aggie have been kind of harping about the last couple of town halls, is really embracing that fun factor to attract that play and earn philosophy versus
right.
the play to earn philosophy. Would you mind kind of rehashing a little bit your approach to play and earn, and what does that mean, and how is that different from play to earn?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a matter of semantics, but if you think about it, if people are coming into the game and their thought process is, I'm coming into this game to earn money, then what happens inevitably when the market shifts, when the earning opportunities aren't the same, or just like all things go, that it's not viable for everybody to earn, right? That it's not viable that everybody earns a decent amount of money, because that's very rarely the case in anything. You don't have something that is based on consumption and purchasing of cards where everybody earns. Somebody is spending, right? Somebody is spending, and if somebody is going to make money in general, except in a bull trend on a market, most people, or most of the people, are not going to make money. They're either going to lose money or stay break even, while some people make money, right? That's just the norm for how pricing dynamics work, right? So when we look at, if we are trying to target the people with the message of, hey, you're going to come and play this game and make money, we're going to lose them as soon as that's not true. Whereas if we target people to say, hey, this is an awesome game, and not only that, you are actually earning real assets while you play the game, right? And they may not be worth much to start, but over time you accumulate them. Over time, as you look back, some of those may be worth more than others. And in the midst of playing a fun game, you will have accumulated something that, you know, you could take with you. You could sell if you want to. Maybe other people develop something around those assets, and you actually have a different game that you could play with the same things that you've earned, right? Like, there's all sorts of different use cases there. And so, yeah, the concept of play to earn means I am playing in order to earn, versus play and earn is I'm here to play, but hey, it's a really cool benefit that I get to earn something too, right? Like that. And then that way, when the market shifts, you have people that honestly, like, play and earn is the way that I play Splinterlands. Right. I am not playing to earn. When I invest money in packs, when I buy more cards, I am not generally looking at it from the standpoint of, I'm making this decision because I am expecting that these cards are going to, like, pay for my kids' college fund in the future. Right. Like, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I'm thinking, I got some spare scratch. I could throw it into this game and increase my deck, make my deck more powerful, help me to win some more brawls, help to get this card that I've been wanting. And it's like, it's cool that also helps me earn more. But my primary motivation isn't that I'm expecting it to be a massive moneymaker for me, right? Like, I'm here to play a game, and I get to leverage automation in order to help make sure that I am maximizing what that earns me in the process. But if it was exclusively about maximizing the ROI, honestly, like, for the most part, automating things isn't the best way to do that. In general, most of the time, it's rent out the deck, right? Like, rent it out on the market. You're going to generally make more immediately off of that than you will off of doing the battles. So that's not always the case, but that's where the market's been a lot. Anyway, so yeah, so that difference of play to earn versus play and earn, really, if we can go after the people who are here to play, and that's their primary reason, it is a much stronger, less susceptible to collapse sort of environment. We saw the same thing happen, early on in kind of the cycle of the bull market that we just left, where the big thing was DeFi for a while. And essentially what people did is they moved their funds in mass from liquidity pool to liquidity pool, depending on whatever maximized the yield, right? They weren't in that pool in order to provide a cool, consistent return. They were constantly moving it around and maximizing it. And so many projects, it's like, this pool made sense for a while, and then it essentially collapses, right? Like, everybody exits because it's not the most profitable one. And so similarly, if Splinterlands tries to be, we will always be the best place to help you earn, that's nearly impossible to hold on to forever. But being a game that people want to continually play, that's something that you could do. That's something that you could say, we could focus on the fun, and the earn is a great side benefit, but it's not the emphasis. It's not the focus. And I think the more that, as a community, that we realize that is a much more sustainable strategy, then the better off it is for everybody. And there are lots of opportunities to earn. There are lots of ways to do that, but it's if it's the only or primary focus for the entire community, it's going to collapse. And there has to be a shift. So I think I completely agree with that mentality of the team to say, what do we do to attract players that want to play, to attract players that want to invest for sake of the game, not for sake of, exclusively a return, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And can I go back to like another reason why people are in this game and the whole ecosystem? That's like community. Right. And we were talking off air about Hive and that whole community. Would you mind, like, I know it's like a big one to throw at you, but could you mind, and I ask you because you've been so helpful to me and Bjangles, like getting us and like set up in terms of content creating. But I was just wondering if you could like maybe outline some ways that individuals could utilize the Hive community. Would that be possible?
Yeah. So I'll give some really practical tips. So first and foremost, everybody who's listening to this, if you play Splinterlands, you have a Hive account. That means that you have access to the Hive blockchain. Hive's story is really interesting. But at a basic level, Hive was actually first built to be a social network, a blockchain-based social network. And as a result, by being a blockchain-based social network, they had to figure out some things, right? They had to figure out, well, hey, if I'm a social network, it's going to be hard to get people to use this if I have to pay every time I make a post. It's going to be hard for people to use this if I make a post and it takes an hour before that post goes live, right? Which, an hour to multiple days, right? If we look at like Bitcoin, sometimes those transactions don't actually fully, complete or validate for a long period of time at some points, right? So there were some of these problems that had to be solved in order to make a blockchain-based social network that actually made sense, that would actually be useful. That when it was figured out, made it happen to be an awesome blockchain for nearly anything that you might want to build on top of it, right? So Hive is awesome in that you have fast and feeless transactions that all you got to do is stake a bit of the token Hive and power it up. It's called Hive Power. And by doing that grants you access to a pool of resources that's constantly replenishing, that when you use them, they aren't gone. They come back, but it helps us to deal with bad actors who are trying to take an unfair share of the resources that are required to actually run and support and host the blockchain Hive, but while still making it well within the bounds of humans, being able to do the everyday things of like posting posts and commenting and having followers and who they're following and all that. And so that's kind of the story of Hive. And so what's cool is this blockchain that powers Splinterlands is first and foremost, it was created to be a social platform. And the primary mechanism on that social platform in kind of its inception is blogging, right? So most kind of the original Hive community is very much in favor of what you would consider long form blogging. So longer content, especially written content, but at this point, even audio, video, etc. Longer form stuff is what they generally are looking for, but people are developing even short form stuff. But what's cool is that there's this massive community. I mean, it's not the biggest community in the world, but it's an active community that shares content, that enjoys content. There's communities around specific topics, and it's continually growing. There's continually more stuff coming into play. And as a Splinterlands player, one of the things that the Splinterlands team, which comes out of this Hive ecosystem and is very aware of the Hive ecosystem, they actually support Splinterlands players who create content on Splinterlands, right? Who talk about Splinterlands, who talk about what's going on in the game, who talk about what's going on in their battles. In fact, every week you can submit a battle based on a prompt to something called the Battle Challenge. And the Battle Challenge, what they generally do is they give you some sort of prompt or theme where they say, share a battle that uses... I don't know. What's a card to throw out there? Let's Furious Chicken.
Yeah.
So tell us a battle that uses Furious Chicken, right? And tell us why you chose your lineup. Tell us how did it perform. Like you don't have to even win, right? You could lose and say, oh, here's why I lost and what I would change next time, right? And you don't even have to actually use the Furious Chicken. They give you a prompt so that there's some sort of theme for it, but you could submit a battle that has no chickens to be seen, and it would still qualify. And the Splinterlands team, through their staked vote power of Hive Power, they get to vote on your post to say this portion of the daily pool of Hive should go to this content creator for creating this post, and they leverage that in order to support the community. So as a Splinterlands player, if you take the time each week and you write a simple post talking about your battles, talking about how your lineups went, all of that, and you submit that to the Splinterlands post that's called the Battle Challenge. In general, I'd have to check and see what it's valued at right now, but oftentimes those posts are worth a cool $5 to $10 each time that you do it, right? You could do that every week. You can take those rewards and either further increase your high power value itself, or you could take those rewards, turn them into DEC, buy some cards, and increase your deck, right? You can leverage content as a way to earn, right? So you could write and earn with Hive. You can create content and further. I mean, that's the simple way. Doing the battle challenge is an easy way that I think everybody can wrap their heads around. But regardless, like if you got a great strategy in the game, if you've got a cool way of looking at how to secure cards at a good price, if you've got really solid thoughts around botting and automation, you will likely get some good votes on Hive as well. And so it's definitely a place that's worth exploring. You could, my favorite place is Peak D, so that's PEAKD. .com. If you go there, you could log in with your Splinterlands account, which is a Hive account, as long as you have access to your keys and you've claimed those, which I think is required at this point, right? I've been around since before that was required. As long as you have your keys, then you could get in and you could start posting on Hive and potentially earning rewards for talking about this game that you enjoy. And just like you said, massive community. Even as you dig into it, the story of Hive even existing is because it has such a powerful community. Hive actually decided to essentially seize control of a thing that was being taken from them, and because the community was strong enough, they were able to hold on to it. And it's not something that you see very often, but it's something that Hive was able to do. Me personally, I find it incredibly inspiring. It's a cool thing that has happened, the story of Hive. But yeah, as a Splinterlands player, there's a massive opportunity to create content and to enjoy this game in another form and talk about it and get paid in the process. Earn some internet gold stars called Hive that have real world value.
I love it, man. And yeah, like I'm going to echo what Waskel just shared, and in that you have been such a solid ambassador for the Hive blockchain. And we've had plenty of conversations around, how can we continue to grow the podcast? How can we continue to shift our content to get it in front of more eyes? And it's all in the name of, we look at it as you're trying to help us, but the truth is, and we know this, you're just a golden ambassador for the Hive blockchain and everything that it stands for. And we just happen to be a huge receiver of that benefit. So yeah, thank you, Max. And we certainly appreciate that. But, the implications of the Hive blockchain, and we've seen the advent of things like 3Speak, which is essentially a monetized YouTube that, right. As a Hive account holder, you have access to. So 3speak.com, if you haven't checked that out, is a very cool tool. And also a more recent development, and something that I'm super excited about, is All Real, which is a decentralized podcast platform that is living on the Hive blockchain. And we're slowly in the process of trying to migrate everything over to All Real. But yeah, long-term implications, we talked about this with Matt Clark a couple of weeks ago. If you can burrow down in the depths of, depths, I guess, is a relative term, but in the depths of the current bear market, things will inevitably start to shift towards a bull market. And if you can burrow down in a very active community, which is a huge benefit of being a part of the Hive blockchain, you're going to reap massive benefit on the other side.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the community supports it. It's a community driven project, which I think is something that, speaking for the three of us, if I may, is something that attracts us to, not only Splinterlands, but the greater realm of the Hive blockchain and everything that it has to offer. And you're absolutely right, man. Like the content, even on your personal account, hop in and have a scroll through peakd.com. There's going to be a community for you. I've scrolled through photography. There's homeschool teaching stuff. There's cooking. There's travel. There's, it's pretty much a much more or a much less scummy Instagram, Facebook, I guess, is kind of a good way to kind of describe it for those that are uninitiated to peakd.com.
Absolutely. And honestly, like there's some good reasons for that, right? Like, so the nature of like accounts have reputation, and like there's literally a score on Hive. But even aside from that, like accounts have reputation in the sense of, like, I know at this point, when I see posts from certain people, I know what kind of post to expect, right? I know this, the quality of content. I know the kinds of thoughts and views. I know, I know these people on the blockchain, at least in the sense of the view that's put out through this content. And as a result, like, if those kind of people do something really crappy to somebody else, that's not worth it. They damage their reputation. That, it's one of the things that I got a bunch of kids. It's one of the things I teach my kids, right? Trust takes years to build and seconds to lose. Yeah. And so when you have a platform that simultaneously is tied to the ability to actually earn something from it, right? Like you can earn tokens by posting on there. So there's a financial component that you can participate with, but there's other things like, literally, does the community want to support you and stuff like that? That it is a very solid, like, self-policing system where people are good to each other for the most part because it's in their best incentive to do so. And so, yeah, like, part of it might just be that it's small enough right now that that we see kind of a good-natured community among a group of people, and maybe that'll change over the years as it gets big. I don't know, but I think there's actually a lot of components just literally built into the system itself that make Hive this sort of magical place of like people just sharing good content and enjoying good content together. And like, the coolest thing about it cannot be taken away from you. There is not someone anywhere that could say, I am going to remove your content. I am going to take your followers from you. No one can possibly do that. The worst thing that can happen is a specific site, like, say, PeakD. PeakD could say your content will not show up on PeakD. They could do that because they have control over PeakD, right? Like, they could set up the systems to do that. But your content and your followers are all done on the blockchain. That is a distributed, decentralized database of those activities, which means all that has to happen is you roll up PeakDX and point it to the Hive blockchain, and all of your content and all of your followers are still there. You didn't lose them. You don't have to regain them. They still exist. They're all there, ready for you to be able to tap into. So it can't be taken away from you. So unlike most social media at this point, which is digital sharecropping, where sure, you can build up a following, you can build up an audience, but at any moment, Zuckerberg or Musk or whoever's in charge of LinkedIn or shoot, even when it comes to podcasting, Apple, Spotify, like, they could decide to pull you down. And while your feed still technically exists, there are centralized people that are controlling the flow of that information and can delist you and remove your ability to acquire new customers or even to reach your current audience. That can't happen on Hive. So that to me is one of the coolest things, is that it is simultaneously owned by everybody while also being like owned by you. You own your content. You own the stuff that you put on there. As long as whoever controls your keys controls all of your content. So that's why your keys are so important, right? Not your keys, not your crypto, not your keys, not your Hive account. Not your followers, not your posts. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so interested into the whole concept of it, because it just, like, some people say, oh, you're only writing these articles because you want to earn, or like you're only voting for these guys because you want them to vote for you. But for me, it's not about that. It's kind of about how it's just the whole community, right? It's just these, and I have mentioned this before, about how this principle has been going back thousands of years, right? In communities all around the world, and I help you, you help me, and it's just reciprocal. And this is what it feels like with Hive, and like with Peaked as well. So yeah,
and honestly, I mean, like, the reality is, I know it, at least for me, which means if it's true for me, it has to at least possibly be true for other people. And you just alluded to this, and B Jangles, I think you would probably agree with this too. I know I personally can make more money doing other things than posting on Hive. I guaranteed can make more money doing other things. I have standing commitments that if I wanted to tap into, I know for a fact I could make more money doing other things. And yet I still find myself taking the time and creating content and putting it into that blockchain because it's awesome, because it's cool, because there's something interesting and valuable going on there that's bigger than just the amount of money that you can get out of it. That there's like a movement that we're creating by building this thing up that, if we can keep it, can change the world for people. And like, oh yeah. Anyway, Hive, I love Hive. Hive is awesome. But but yeah, it's you're right. It's sort of a similar thing, right? Like, participating on Hive isn't about right to earn, right? If you want to do that, well, like, go list work on Fiverr, go start gigging for jobs on Upwork. You can make money writing if you want to, probably more so, probably quicker, doing other things. But getting to write about things that you care about, getting to participate in communities that matter to you, and getting to have some level of ownership and earning tied to it is just, it's a magical thing. And even still, most people probably won't be able to do that as like their full-time income. In at least most people who live in places that have a higher cost of living than in general what Hive could provide. But even still, there's still a lot of value. And like, I wrote something about this thing that I enjoyed, and like, I made magic internet money off of it. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, beauty of the Hive blockchain, man. I love listening to you gush about it, and I hope it resonates with the audience out there listening. It's such a cool thing, and the power of community, uncensored community that we have completely unfettered ownership of. Is such a cool, powerful, raw thing that it's rare, right? It's right. If you're blogging on any of the major, you go down the list, you don't own any of that stuff. Whereas on Hive, rest assured, that is in perpetuity, it is yours. Yes.
Yep. And shoot, man, I mean, here's the thing. If you want censorship, even Hive will allow you to censor to your heart's content. You can add people to your own block lists. You can make it so that you never see things from people that you don't want to see things from. What you don't find on Hive is some top-down solution deciding what you are allowed to see. You have the freedom to decide what you want to see. You can even say, hey, I want to trust, B Jangles. I trust what B Jangle says I should see or not. So I will opt in to only see the things that B Jangle says that I could see. Because you can even do that. I could follow a block list that B Jangles puts together if I wanted to, and then only see the stuff that that makes it through that filter. So like you still can control what you want to see. It's not like a big wide open hole that you can't decide what goes through it. But you get to be in power of what's seen. And I don't know about you, but I trust my opinion on what I want to see drastically more than anybody else deciding what I get to see. So
perfect. Okay, guys. Is there anything you want to touch upon, Max, before we head off our own ways?
There's one last thing. Okay. So this is my pet project that no matter what your views are on automation, there is a place for you to find an awesome and powerful tool that will help you in the Splinterlands ecosystem. And that place is called splinterlinks.com. So Splinterlinks is a site that I put together. It is unfortunately still more of a Web 2.0 thing. I haven't been able to build it out as a Web 3.0 thing. But what it is it's a collection of community curated links in the Splinterlands ecosystem of tools, projects, creators, like you guys are listed on there, and all of these things are curated and able to be voted upon, so that people could say, these are my favorite tools. These are the things that I like in this ecosystem. So if you are looking for something that will help you score cards for cheaper, maybe find that new favorite creator, maybe find that new strategy that's going to help you win in your brawls, even if you don't want to touch a lick of automation, we have all sorts of tools on there. And even though, I work with the team at Archmage, splinterlinks.com is my own project. It's free to sign up. You could sign in either with an email or with a Discord account to create an account. But just to visit the site, you don't have to sign up for anything. You can click the links and access that and have that be a database of links that we're constantly updating for you. So that would be the last thing that I would point people toward. Otherwise, if people are interested in what we're up to at Archmage, that's archmage.app is our website. If you check out archmage.app, that's where you can see our white paper, the information about what we're up to, get links to all of our Hive stuff and all of that, our Discord, and come and join and see what we're up to. We welcome all sorts of conversation, whether you are in favor of what we're up to or against it. We welcome you to come into our Discord and talk to us. We are real people that will have real conversations with you. So feel free to stop on by, say hi, ask questions, voice your sorrows or your joys, and we will listen and converse with you graciously and kindly as possible. So yeah. Anyway, archmage.app is the website for Archmage.
Awesome. And on the note of all the links that we just kind of threw at you, they will be available in the associated Peak D post that will be dropping alongside this episode. Max, as always, an absolute pleasure. You're one of our best buddies that we've met through our journeys on the Hive blockchain. We appreciate you taking the time and making the media rounds and making the People's Guild to stop on your perpetual book tour, man. We always appreciate spitting the what's the phrase there?
Fire, spit in the fire. There we go.
Yeah, no shortage of fire, man. Appreciate you, Max.
I'll let you guys know. You were the first people I reached out to when I wanted to start the media tour. We have the whole time difference that made it hard to happen quickly, but I reached out to you guys first, so you have a special place in my heart. I love what you guys are up to. More than anything, I love that you guys are taking the information and leveraging it. It's really cool to see. I'm always excited when I could share something of value and people get value out of it. So I wish you guys all the success. We'll have to do another one. I'll have to come back on, assuming you'll have me, and keep the conversation going.
That is a given, my friend. That is a given. Yeah, I just want to say again, I know we always say it through Discord and, like on via text, but yeah, just to say face to face, it's just so great to have met you and, you've opened up so many doors to us that I just never knew was there. And like you said before, that we're just early adopters to all this. But man, you've definitely you've definitely got it, and you're kind of pointing people like us in the right way. So I just want to thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Okay, and to everyone out there, you have been listening to
People's Guild.